Public MTProto Proxy die fast. You grab one off a list, it works for an hour, then it's full or blocked, or it's stuffing a sponsor channel into your account. The fix is to run your own. It takes about 15 minutes on a cheap VPS, and a private endpoint on a clean IP lasts weeks instead of hours. I run managed Telegram hosting and proxy infrastructure on dedicated hardware in Singapore. So I deal with MTProto endpoints every day, the ones that survive and the ones that get burned. This walkthrough is the exact setup I'd hand someone who wants their own private proxy and doesn't want to trust a stranger's server with their connection metadata. First, what MTProto actually is. It's Telegram's own proxy protocol, built right into the client. It isn't a generic tunnel like a VPN. It understands Telegram traffic specifically, and the modern version wraps your connection so that to anyone inspecting the line, it looks like ordinary HTTPS going to some normal website. That mode is called vectors, and it's the reason a well-run MTProto proxy is hard to detect and block. Deep packet inspection sees a TLS handshake to a real domain and moves on. The catch with public proxies is simple. Everyone hits the same endpoint. The regime's classifier notices 1,000 people connecting to one IP and speaking the same pattern, and it blocks the IP. A private proxy that only you and a few friends use never trips that threshold. That's the whole game. Fresh IP, low user count, vectors on. Step 1 is the VPS. You want a small box outside the country you're trying to reach Telegram from. One shared CPU, 1 GB of RAM is plenty. MTProto barely uses resources, it's mostly idle relaying small encrypted packets. Pick a provider and a region that isn't already saturated with proxy traffic. Somewhere like Singapore, Japan, or the Netherlands tends to give you a clean IP. Avoid the cheapest bulk hosts where the whole IP range is already flagged from abuse. A $5 a month plan is fine. Pick the latest Ubuntu LTS image when you create it, so the commands here match. When the box is up, you SSH in as root or a sudo user and you're ready. Sean for me basikin teram MB pulsu. Gather biaspadet test scans to harden the box. Update the system with apt update and apt upgrade. That's not optional. An unpatched proxy is a liability. If you're on a root login, this is also a good moment to add an SSH key and turn off password login, because a proxy box that gets brute forced becomes someone else's tool. These are small steps and they save you a bad week later. Step 2 is the software. The cleanest option in 2026 is MTG, a single lightweight binary that does vectils MTProto and nothing else. The easiest way to run it is Docker, so install Docker first if it isn't there, then you generate a secret. The secret is what your client uses to authenticate to the proxy, and in vectils mode it also carries the domain you're masquerading as. Generate it with this. You run docker run -rm, then 919/mtg:2, then the word generate -secret, then --hex, then a real domain to fake. Use a big common domain that's plausible to see HTTPS traffic to. Something like itunes.apple.com works well. The command spits out a long hex string that starts with the bytes for that domain. Copy that string. That's your proxy secret. Step 3 is running the proxy. You start MTG as a container, hand it the secret, and pick a port. Here's the full command. Docker run -d for detached, --name MTG, --restart unless -stopped, -p443:3128, then the image 999/mtg:2, then the word run, then your secret, --bind 0.0.0.0:3128. That maps external port 443 to the proxy inside the container. Port 443 matters. It's the standard HTTPS port, so a proxy living there blends in with normal web traffic far better than some random high port. Standard is the firewall. Open the port you chose, 443, and lock down everything else. On a typical box with UFW, you run UFW allow 443, then UFW allow SSH so you don't lock yourself out, then UFW enable. If your provider has its own cloud firewall in the dashboard, open 443 there too. People forget the provider level firewall and then wonder why the proxy won't connect. Now the part everyone actually wants, the link. MTProto proxies are shared as a single URL that, when tapped, opens Telegram and offers to connect. The format is tg://proxy, then a question mark, then server equals your server IP or hostname, then &port equals 443, then &secret equals that hex string you generated. So it reads tg://proxy question mark server equals your IP & port equals 443 & secret equals the long hex. There's also an HTTPS version that starts with t.me/proxy and takes the exact same 3 parameters. That one is handy because it's a normal clickable web link. Tap either on a phone that has Telegram installed and it pops a connect dialog, paste it into Telegram, and you'll see the proxy added under Settings, Data and Storage, Proxy. It shows a green dot and a ping time when it's live. That's it. You're now routing Telegram through your own private endpoint. One thing worth doing before you trust it: confirm the proxy is actually carrying traffic and not just sitting there on the box. Run docker logs mtg and you'll see connections come in when a client connects. If you toggle the proxy on in Telegram and nothing shows in the log, your firewall or the provider firewall is eating the port. That log is your first debugging tool. When you see the connection land and Telegram messages start flowing while the proxy is on, you know the path is clean end to end. A note on keeping it alive long term: MTG with the restart unless stop flag comes back on its own after a reboot, so a provider maintenance window won't kill your proxy permanently. But you should still check on it. Set a reminder to confirm the IP still works once a week, because the failure mode isn't the software crashing, it's the IP quietly getting added to a block list on the censored network. When that happens, the proxy looks healthy from your side and simply stops connecting from inside the blocked country. The fix is the same every time: fresh box, fresh IP, regenerate, reshare. Let me cover the edge cases, because this is where people get stuck. The first is the secret. If you generated it without the --hex flag or without a factors domain, you'll get an older style secret that doesn't do the HTTPS camouflage. On a censored network, that older format gets detected and blocked quickly. Always use the hex factor secret with a real domain baked in. You can tell it's the right kind because it's long and it starts with the literal bytes EE or the domain prefix. Second edge case is the domain you're faking. It has to be a domain that genuinely serves HTTPS and that's plausible to connect to. If you fake a domain that doesn't resolve or that nobody visits, the disguise is weaker. Big content and app domains are the safe pick. Don't fake a tiny site. Third is IP reputation. Even a private proxy dies if the underlying IP is dirty. Before you commit, check the IP against a couple of block lists. If it's already flagged from a previous tenant, destroy the box and spin up a fresh one until you get a clean address. This matters more than anything else. A clean IP with a basic setup beats a fancy setup on a burnt IP every time. Fourth, the sponsor tag. MTG lets you attach a promoted channel that shows up for users who connect through your proxies. You do not need this, leave it off. The only reason public proxies inject channels is to monetize you. For private proxies, skip it entirely. Fifth, port choice. I said 443 and I mean it. You can run on other ports, but 443 is the one that hides best because HTTPS lives there. If your provider blocks inbound 443 for some reason, 8883 is a reasonable fallback, but expect slightly worse survival on aggressive networks. Sixth, multiple users. One MTG instance happily serves a handful of people. But the more people on one endpoint, the more it looks like a proxy, and the faster it burns. Keep a private proxy actually private. A dozen trusted users is fine. Don't post a link in a public group. Seventh, latency. An MTProto Proxy adds a hop, so your messages travel to the VPS and then to Telegram servers. If you pick a box on the other side of the planet, you'll feel it. Voice calls get choppy and media loads slow. Pick the closest clean region to you that's still outside the block. For someone in the Middle East, a European or Singapore box is a good balance. For Southeast Asia, Singapore or Japan, test the ping in the proxy settings screen. Anything under 200 milliseconds feels fine for messaging. 8th, IPv6. Some cheap boxes hand you an IPv6 address and a shared IPv4. MTG binds to IPv4 by default in the command above, which is what you want. because Telegram clients and the TG proxy link expect a v4 address. If your box is IPv6 only, you'll have a bad time sharing a clean link, so make sure the plan you buy includes a dedicated IPv4 address. Most do, but confirm before you pay. When you hand the link to a friend, send it over a channel that isn't the blocked one. If Telegram itself is down for them, a t.me link won't open. Send the raw TG proxy string or a screenshot of the 3 values, server, port, secret, and have them edit manually under Settings, Data and Storage, Proxy, Add Proxy, MTProto. Manual entry is the reliable fallback when the auto link can't fire. Fork parameters appear. A quick word on what this does and doesn't fix. A private MTProto Proxy gets your Telegram connection through a network block. It does not change anything about the account itself. If your goal is running several accounts that need to look like separate real people on real devices, a proxy alone won't do that, because your device fingerprint and the account behavior still travel with you. The proxy moves the connection, not the identity. That's a different problem with a different solutions. If you'd rather not babysit a VPS, watch IP reputation, and rotate boxes when one burns, that's exactly the work we take off your hands. We run managed Telegram hosting and proxy infrastructure on dedicated hardware in Singapore. Real carrier IPs and clean endpoints maintained for you. If that sounds better than running your own, start at telegramvault.org and use code TGYT. For a lot of people, self-hosting one proxy is a fun weekend and a fine solution. Once you're past 2 or 3 accounts that actually matter, handing it off pays for itself. That's the full setup. Clean VPS, MTG in Docker with a fake anti-hex secret, port 443, tight firewall, and a private TG proxy link you control. If this helped, subscribe, because the next video walks through connecting Telegram through this exact proxy on iOS, step by step with the setting screens. Thanks for watching.